everybody. Welcome to Improv FAQ at Length. This is a series of longer conversations about improv topics that have lots of questions surrounding them. I'm James Quesada.
And I'm Bob Wick.
And in this episode, we're going to cover a topic that we've touched on in a couple different ways, which is being a good community member. What does it mean to be a community member, an active and involved community member with your, specifically, we're talking about like your improv community. We're not going to lecture people on getting involved with your neighborhood. But
you should. I mean, you should.
Yeah.
You should. That's our stance. You should.
Yeah. Being an active citizen. Those are all things that you should do. But we're talking about how to get involved with your improv community and how to do a good job at it. And so there's a couple angles that this has come up, and I want to throw it to you, Bob, because you are, I think, a kind of a poster child for being an active, good community member. You do a lot of really great put on programs and give a lot of your time to great things in the communities that you get involved with improv and theater. And there's that side of it of like helping out boost the theater community and put on like events and create opportunities and stuff like that. And there's also the side of like people who are like, what is there? Like, how do I figure out what's available and get involved and find different ways other than just taking classes or trying to get on stage to be involved. People just want to like have a social community to belong to as well. So it's come up in questions in our Q&A sessions, and it's come up in our conversations about various topics. So how do you think about this idea of being a community member in your improv community, Bob?
Oh, it's kind of funny. But I'm also a wrestling fan, and there's this philosophy in wrestling where if you are, towards retirement and you've been like a big name, like a Hulk Hogan type guy, then you start losing to the person who's becoming the bigger, who's going to be the next Hulk Hogan. So it's always, not that I'm going to retire anytime soon because I love improvising, but it's knowing that I'm secure, so I should create opportunity for other people. If I can, play a supporting character rather than the lead character or in a scene, so that person gets so someone can get the opportunity of doing that who may never have had that chance on the main stage, then I'm going to do that. Because, it's that thing we talk about in improv all the time. The best improvisers are the ones who make their scene partners look great. And it should be the same with the community. Like, the best improvisers are the one who create a strong community, so we have a place to play. Especially like during now, I see a lot of things locally. We talked about the Shadow League at Pointless doing fundraising things to help out their theater. I see a lot of stuff at the Ant where people are creating shows so they can have virtual content. A lot of stuff going on at Go as well. We just had to do a bunch of physical labor to get the training center moved to HQ so they can close down that building, unfortunately. But it was all hands on deck, and it's better that happens than like tell the three owners, like, go do it yourself. You're not giving us stage time at the moment. So I think there's a lot of different ways to help out your theater, and you should explore those, to help out the theater so it can help you out. Like, your relationship with the theater is, it's give and take.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like it when I see talented people who only take, because then they don't leave anything for the rest of us. It's gotta be give and take. You should give. And I think you do a really great job of that. You always created shows, and when you do create shows, you always cast it for younger, interesting people. And I think part of that is, you do like to play with new toys, but also I think you like to encourage people to explore what makes them, and you create shows that heighten that. So I think this is an interesting topic for us to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot in there. Let's start with
Yeah, I'm on a roll.
idea of we were talking before this, like I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know if we'll be able to do like a full length episode, but if it's shorter, that's fine. I think we're gonna have
yeah,
plenty to chew on here. Let's start with one of the first things you said, which is about like pretty much passing the torch to
yeah,
um the next generation, because that's something that like when I create show opportunities, um I that is inspired by people who did that for me early on, and paying it forward. So like Matt Nas, um uh,
yeah.
who we've had an episode with and talked about all the shows that he's produced and created. A couple of them were really like happened to give me a big leg up. Like when he did the Gauntlet, which was a cage match style King of the Hill tournament. um he invited me and Alex Mar, my original duo partner, to be, I think, in the first week of it, and that kickstarted me putting together, like building that team. We went from a duo to being like a 7-person team, uh,
Right.
and then he also gave me an opportunity to play guitar for Rockamatic for a little bit. Actually, me and Alex again, and it's like um that always stayed with me as like, he didn't have to give me that opportunity, but he
Right.
saw that I was eager to get involved, and he was creating shows. And when you create shows, you need people and talent and performers to make it work.
Yeah.
um so it it's a win-win, but like you have to, on the flip side of that, what I learned is you have to have an eye, you have to be paying attention to what is going on in the community, what's needed, um and think about like, okay, this is the show idea I want to do, but also how can I use it as an exciting opportunity to get people involved,
Yeah.
who are uh who deserve a shot, like are coming up,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, like going back to Matt Nas, like I think he's the best example of how to do that kind of stuff. Both me and you got a big push because of that gauntlet. And we talked about all the shows that his variety show started. You
Mhm.
know, um, I think it's important, especially for people like us who've been at the theater for a while and who are instructors. Like, pay attention to your students. Pay attention, and not just like the shining star or whatever, the A student. Like, pay attention to those who have a love for the art and maybe having a harder time. Maybe take them aside, because as for somebody who needed extra time to develop their comedic voice, like I appreciated those times where someone talked to me. Like Dave Davies was a really big influence on me, like coming up through when I was at Second City, because when we would have shows at the Ant or auditions through Second City, he was there. He would take us aside at Some Brothers, give us a pep talk or some advice, and it was always like, oh my god, this guy who's just crushing it on stage anytime you ever see him is taking 5 minutes to just to chat me up, not chat me up, but just to give me some of his time, and it was appreciated. And
Yeah.
I think we when you start performing, you're always looking. I guess you're looking up to people who are on stage, and then when you get on stage, you don't realize that there are going to be some people who are looking up to you,
Mhm.
and it's a weird thing to get used to. It took me a minute. I think it takes some people some time. Uh, it's always fun for me to hear like when students talk about someone who just started, like who just became main stage, like, oh, I just saw like Alex Bergman and he said hi to me. It was cool, and
Mhm.
I don't think Alex Bergman still knows like how people perceive him. And he's a very talented guy, and yeah, it's going to take some time for him to get used to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about it with Jenny when in the
Oh
conversation
yeah,
about power dynamics, where like the yeah, not having to kind of like take a step back and realize that like, okay, now you're a role model, like in the unique way that it exists inside of a improv community. You can't take for granted or undervalue the fact that people are looking to you, think you're like doing shows, and it's like, oh, how cool. Like
Right.
when you enter the world of improv, you have to remember what it was like for you to be in Narnia all of a sudden
Yeah.
and look to people who are crushing it on stage or teaching classes and stuff. And yeah, I think it's good to be prepared to like one, be patient with people who want to bug you and ask you about questions if that's how you feel about it, or be generous with your time too. If you are a teacher, you know that like it's gonna carry over to different uh,
Yeah.
wherever you go. You know, in the improv community, people are going to be like wanting to pick your brain or say hi or whatever. There's a weird kind of like insular celebrity to it. Which
Right.
is so funny.
Honestly, I absolutely love it when students come and introduce themselves to me because I love that enthusiasm they have. And it's hard to like, you and I have been doing it for what? How long have you been doing it? 12 years now? It's like,
11, yeah.
yeah. It's hard to maintain that new car smell, if you will. So like anytime like, oh man, you just learned Zip Zap Zop and want to talk about it with me, please do, because I miss being excited about Zip Zap Zop. I miss
Yeah,
that.
true.
You
Yeah.
know, we're at the stage where we have to invent things to get excited at to make this more challenging.
Yeah.
So, like, please, yeah. And I've never really had too many people who are established complain about being asked about improv. They just to put it out there. And anybody who ever has, you probably don't want their advice anyways.
Yeah, or they do a good job of hiding. There's some people who get super
Right.
to improv, and they'll let you know because they won't be there.
Yeah. And
It's
that's more about them being,
well, yeah.
yeah,
Look,
the
look,
social. Yeah.
it's fine, especially if you are a teacher, director, and a performer. It's like, I don't think you and I are as much the kind of people that are like, I need my life and my improv life to be
Oh
separate.
no.
Like they're fused together for me, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But I understand that for some people that there is a separation. You want to be able to flip the switch off and just hang out, not talk about improv. And that's okay. I guess this is a little.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I didn't even think about that. That's how like foreign of a concept that is to me. Like, oh yeah, I guess that does make sense. Oh wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
sorry, people, for shitting on you earlier.
No, but like I guess what it is again, it's like at least understanding and not
Yeah.
misusing that position that you're in, because if you're not into it, you want to be separate, then you do have to kind of go out of your way to hang out in the room where conversations aren't going to be about improv, whatever that means. But yeah, it's on the other side too. It's like again, thinking back to being on the student side of it, and um improv is such a positive, supportive world to be involved in, and that's one of the things that really draws people to it, is just how cool and imaginative and just positive that it is. And so the things that you say and the conversations you have with people can really be inspiring to, I think, a surprising degree. And I know that was true for me as a student, that like there were plenty of conversations I had that really just like, I don't know, opened me up as a person as much as it did as a performer. And it kind of can become this like philosophy and outlook. Even if you're talking about the mechanics and the nerddom of improv, there's things about it that still for me become like portals to a developing outlook. And so I think about that too on the other side, is that like that's not necessarily what I'm trying to do, is just like I want to say the most inspiring thing, but I just want to treat conversations with accessibility and patience and encouragement, because I know how much that can mean to someone.
Yeah, yeah, because I know we've had conversations about past conversations we had with other people and what that's meant to us,
Mhm.
and that it sticks with you. It sticks with you. I think a lot of artists have an issue with judging themselves. And it's so easy for someone with a great imagination to come up with a lot of reasons not to do things or to criticize something you have done. And it sucks. So to have like a counterbalance of people you respect in your head as well, telling you,
Yeah.
hey, that was really cool. It's really fucking helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of self-esteem in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a great point too, because, and I think on both sides, it's like we can also make up a lot of justifications that devalue improv for being silly and trivial and dumb or whatever. Like it's cool to call things stupid in comedy, right?
Right.
And I get that, but at the same time, I've just, especially during the pandemic, realized like how much of um a beacon it is for like that I didn't appreciate in the same way in normal life that
Yeah.
when I think about like there's so many things to fight against in negativity in the world right now. What can you hope for? What can you root for? And I think that like the spirit of what you find in the improv community is something that you can root for, can hope for,
Right.
and that means more than we want it to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Comedians, we're like, oh man, that sounds too important.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, again, the same kind of artists have issues of being vulnerable, so it's a lot safer to be negative or and to put up like a prickly skin to so no one gets close rather than be honest and connect.
Yeah. And I guess this is a little bit of a different conversation too, but like it's a tricky
Yeah.
balance between those things, between like keeping it fun and irreverent,
Right.
and also recognizing the weight that it can have on you as a person and the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's switch gears. So, what would to you? Let me ask you this: what would a strong community member look like to you? What does that mean to you? Like if you had to create a definition or
Oh yeah. Okay. So uh this is funny. I'm having a hard time being succinct on this topic. I thought it would be an easy one
yeah,
but okay, let's see. What does a good community member look like to me?
yeah,
Not everybody has to be the superhero of the community, and pretty much no one should just come and go as needed. You know what I mean? Like you should basically like you said, give as much as you take. If you are super active and you want to be on stage as much as possible, you should also take an interest in what other people are doing on stage
right,
and the opportunities that are available to other people, whether or not it's something you can be involved in. Um, and if you are only there for classes and doing your class show, and maybe you have an indie team, go see someone else's class show, go see someone else's indie night, um, and take an interest.
yeah.
That's pretty much the spectrum for me is like, are you equal parts active as you are supportive?
That's pretty fair. I think that's a really great definition. Um, I'm glad you brought up class shows because honestly, I think main stage people should go watch class shows. I really do. I think I know when I was coming up, there was he was God, his name was Owen. I can't think of his last name for the life of me because I haven't seen him 15 years, but he was a really great guy, really talented guy. He spent most of his career on the cruise ship. Like yeah, after he graduated, he basically went straight to the cruise ship, and I haven't seen him since. But before he went on the cruise ship, he was at every show, and so was and people like Matt Noss. Like I'm always going to go to Matt Noss because he's been like pretty much the blueprint.
Mhm.
Uh, but I remember asking Owen one time, like, why do you like? Isn't this boring to you? Or he's like, no, I love this. I like people see me, and then he named somebody else who used to go to his class shows, and he's like, I remember that person used to come to my class shows and how much it meant to me, so I'm passing it forward. And it just stuck with me. Like, yeah, we should be passing. Like, going back to my original statement at the beginning of this podcast, like we should be passing this forward. We should, if you're asking people to come to your show and to post your posters and you know use their social media platforms to promote your stuff, you should be doing the same, or even a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think it's that equal parts thing too, and because it's not just about. I thought you were drinking a Surge for a second. Is that a LaCroix?
Yeah. No, it's a Surge. I've had a doomsday stash of Surge in a cooler in Westland for like 20 years, and man, today's the day I'm breaking them out. Yeah, it's a key line.
Into a pandemic, get the Surge out.
Yeah. I knew this day would come.
So not just about stage opportunity, but like the equal parts giving and taking, I think also applies to like reflecting on and appreciating what you've gained as a person from being involved in the improv community and at the theater. And then the question is, what can I do to help make sure that happens for someone else? And that might be a lot of things, is just helping promote a show that you're in, or that someone that you like is in, or whatever it is. It just like giving a shout out of like, you guys check if you go see a show and you're like, that was great, just give it a shout out. Little things like that can help create awareness for the theater itself. If there's volunteer opportunities, like things for like snow day or fundraisers, if the theater's a nonprofit and doing its own fundraiser, doing what you can to give to that. We've donated things like workshops to snow day, or as like raffle items, or like movie during diff. If he's all about Gilda's Club. I love Gilda's Club. If there's something going on and he's like, James, are you available for this? The answer is yes. And that has to do with like, Gilda's is not directly associated with any of the theaters, but they are a satellite entity of the improv world. And if it weren't for someone like Gilda Radner, like maybe there wouldn't be, you know what I mean? So I'm like, of course I want to give to something in her legacy and an organization like that has been linked to the improv community in that way. Find opportunities to give back the things that you've gained in whatever way that you've gained them.
Yeah, because we've had so many conversations with people on here who talked about how much they changed and how much improv has improved their lives. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't want to pass that forward. Mm-hmm. It's such a great gift. Being on stage is awesome. It's one of my favorite things, but it's all the other aspects that kept me here. It's, meeting people like you, like me, and all the other friends, and just being able to do stuff and the community and being part of something. You're only on stage when the theater's open for an hour a week. The rest of the stuff is what really brings you back.
Yeah. So, and I guess, but this is the other thing too. Let's go to this side of like the extremes, because this is going to sound like a pat on our own backs, which that we talk in ways that just seems that way. But like, you and I are particularly involved in the improv communities. Not everybody has to be involved to that degree, but I think every improv community needs champions like that to exist in their community. And I think that like, if you're involved in a community that is maybe newer, and it's like, I think about like, I got started at Go Comedy pretty early. You were there from the beginning. It's like, when that's a new community and you start to realize that, a place like the Planet Ant has been around longer, or like going through the same cycle again with like Pointless. It's like, who's going to be the people that stand up to be the community leaders here? Because it's got to be someone.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on like filling that role or being that role?
It's a lot of responsibility, and it's got to come from a place I love, I guess. And it's an important part. It's I mean, every kitchen needs a chef, right? So I don't know. Like I want to say so much right now. It's hard to like pick what does it mean. It's yeah, it's yeah. But going back to what I said before, like I think if you can find some people who are not afraid of work, who are asking, what do I get out of it? I think it's important. And yeah, I don't think everybody needs to be as active as we are, but man, I tell you what, it's nice when someone asks, like, can I help?
Yeah.
I think about a couple times, like I was putting up flyers for a snow day and just someone walking with me. So I have someone to talk to between buildings was a nice thing. Like having Chase there was incredible. It's little things, like you're not doing it all by yourself, because no one should have to do it all by themselves.
Yeah. And then when there are hard times like the pandemic, or who could have predicted that? But like I think every theater is going to go through. Talking about the Planet Ant, like when I started improvising, they were kind of going into a lull, and it was kind of hard for them to get audiences on Monday nights, and they had like before I got introduced to them. They enjoyed a long stint of really successful shows, and like when Second City was around, and then they had to rebuild, right? And with them going through a lull, it's like the stronger their community is, the better. And they've always had strong core community members, and in order to come back up and get to like the peak that they're at now and the expansion that they're at now, it takes strong community members weathering that. And I think it was maybe there's so many people involved at the Planet that would deserve credit for all the great things that have happened. But Jamin in particular was like doing the hot dog thing, right? Like barbecuing or something like that.
Yeah. The hot dog challenge, which ones you like better and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that really got people to start coming out on Monday nights. And then it's like keeping the home team strong, and restarting the class program, and the AMP process and things like that. And it's like it's very much that, like, if you it's not exactly the, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best, but it's like for richer or for poorer, in the sense that, like, if you're involved in the community, be there for the community when it's at that low, as well as when it's at that peak, because like everyone loves to be there during like diff and these bigger moments, but it's like again, think about how great that is, and see if you can give back something equal to it at the lulls.
Yeah. Well, that's a great example. I wish everybody treated every weekend as if it was diff weekend. Just like be excited to be there. Like, I know, like with diff, we have a lot of guests, and that's always going to be like the pinnacle of the year. But if we were as supported with each other throughout and that's asking a lot. But if there was some, like, if I had a magic wand and we had enough people, enough, organization and support, it would, every weekend would feel like diff and then diff would just be super crazy then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It's just chasing the dragon, right? It's
yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, you boost it, and like also the idea of a high tide raises all ships, because
absolutely.
Somebody like Andy Reid, who's involved in like every
Yeah,
theater and helping everyone out, is a fantastic community member on a larger scale.
yeah,
But then there's some people that need to be more dedicated to the specific theaters as well, because the more that you have that and the success of the specific theaters
right.
develop, the more that builds the community, because there's general interest and overflow, and people learn. The more successful your theater is and brings people in to ask about what else is going on in the improv community, the more people are going to learn about the other theaters and look for other um, styles and opportunities and
Yeah,
people to socialize with, you know?
I agree. And there's been points during during this improv journey where there were times where it's never been anybody in charge of the theater. It's always been students or people in the community who are like, "Oh, you're a go guy, and this is an ant person, and that's a pointless person." Like, well, I mean, there are people who maybe because of proximity or your work commitments, who play more at one theater than the other, but let's not try to start any school rivalries unless it's
Yeah.
like all in fun. I do like I know when you teach and then when I teach, uh, at the beginning of classes, I always like I do push my students to go to other theaters to see other shows. You know, they being a student at Go, and I think at most of the theaters, like being a student at a theater, most of the time you do get at least one free or free shows or free show pass, which they should always use. But man, if you love improv, go see as much of it as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Which is another great way to support the community. Like, buy a ticket.
Yes. Yeah. Um, so let's also talk about like specifically back to show opportunities.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things that I want to cover on that. One, diversity initiatives are huge, and having jams like Go Comedy has the True Colors jam, and again, it's always so weird to talk about this in like present tense,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything's on hiatus. But like be, being a good community member also, we talked about like creating opportunities for others. It's also
Right.
like, I think that's something that we're all learning, and I know that I've been working on and building consciousness for, is also about inclusivity. And again, the types of conversations we had with Jenny about like the things you put on stage are, when they're popular, are going to be, there's a cycle of people off stage in the audience who are going to want to get involved in your community, are attracted to the things you put on stage. And so that means a couple things. Is one, that's about style, and it's also about the demographic makeup of your what you're putting on stage as well.
Right.
So being a good community member will also mean being conscious of that, and being like, where can I help fill opportunity and representation, and things like jams. There's We Were Pink was the all ladies jam, right?
Right. Right.
And then there's the True Colors was the LGBTQ
Right.
jam, and Represent
Yes. Yeah.
was
That's the one that Jake was running. All right. And I think that one's coming back. Him and Tam are putting something together for a virtual version of that. So that's gonna be cool.
yeah. And it's not everybody can be responsible for all of those things, but like
Yeah.
having, I think paying attention and learning is of like the needs of a community. That's huge too. Not just what you do, but also like what you go out of your way to learn about, and see opportunity that could grow in a positive direction.
Yeah. And this is okay. This is getting off topic. What I'm about to say next, because I completely agree with you, but I don't really have anything I can add to it because I think you nailed it. But I'm also thinking about casting is important and I think there's been times, everything goes in stages, and I think there's been times where I've noticed like it felt like, oh, this director almost casts the same some people all the time, and whatever diversity or is made up, that's one thing, but there's also like, oh, these are the only some people who get to do things. So that's another part of it, and that's another part of the optics that can be a little disheartening for students. Like, why should I try? Because I'll never be one of those some people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that is tricky. And again, it all of it is this weird juggling match, including you know, uh who's getting the majority, like you're saying, like specific people getting uh a lion's share of the opportunity.
Because the argument can also be made like, if you're a business, you want the some strongest people, or some people who you absolutely know are going to crush, and when an audience member pays for a ticket, they're going to be satisfied. So it's the give and take. Yeah.
And so that's the thing too, is that like we're really we're not talking about you and I from the perspective of like owners. We are talking about it from the perspective of like having been part of the leadership in a community, as well as students and general members of a community. But there, of course, there's a lot that goes on to the plate of the onus is on the theater itself to make decisions about like how are they going to include diversity initiatives and what makes sense, all things being equal, as if they ever are really. It's like well, Second City Main Stage is like these are the prime players, and that is a business model. And so yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a sticky area to mix in with like what the demands should be from a theater, and I think there's a lot of that going on too. But maybe our conversation right here is more about like no matter what the theater is doing, what can you do? As
well, I mean,
independent member.
But really quick before we get off the subject, like my opinion is well, at the very basic level, the theater's job is to keep the lights on and try to bring people in, and then when they're there, they're comfortable. Mm-hmm. At the most basic level. I mean, there's a lot more nuanced stuff they have to do after that, and we're trying to keep that into like community stuff. So I mean, once you accept that, what's your job? If you had written a show and the theater's hosting that show, what's your job from there? Now, take a step back. If you haven't written a show but you're in that show, what's your job? Okay, take a step back. If you're not in the show but you're a part of the community and you like the people in that show, what is your job? So it's a different commitment level the more and more you step back. So basically what you said in the beginning, like you're the balance.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's a balance of give and take, and it's also I think the part of it is to there is a degree of like expectation that you can put on the theater to be like these are our demands, or like there should be open lines of communication between the community and the leadership and ownership of theaters. And I think if that exists, then as a community member, that is something that you can pursue. Is if you notice things about the community, you would like to see more of something, you can always reach out. I hope that those lines exist, and I hope that if they don't, that is something that communities rally to work toward, is open, healthy lines of communication and effective communication between the community and the theater.
I agree. So why I set that last thing up is because there is community members I've noticed who ask too much for the theater. Like, They want the theater to buy billboards and for their class show, and
Yeah.
it's just not cost effective. I think for the most part, it's
Yeah.
been my experience that theaters, do the best they can. Do they do everything they can? Do they always do the right thing? Absolutely not. But they're run by humans, and humans make mistakes.
You have to be realistic about your expectations of what you're
Right.
asking for, and pick your battles. It's like
Right.
because like, do you want, like, what's more important is like well, I guess really the thing I'll say about it is that it takes a village to do the work, right? It's
Right.
not, because we've talked about the theater can't do everything, and the community, each individual member can't do anything, but you can absolutely work together to do all these things on a list, if everybody takes the love that they have for the theater and puts it into doing something to keep building it in a
Yeah.
direction. So it's like, if one person is like, how can we help the theater find a better way to market and do creative marketing to get butts and seats, and somebody else is like, how can we get more representation on stage that accurately reflects our community, then those are two different things. And while it
Right.
may seem it's a two-way street, it can seem unfair for the community members to be like, the theater should be doing more.
Yeah.
It can
And
also
I think it's.
fair,
Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
to be like, yeah, but there's so many more of you than there are of me. Like, help me out,
Right. Exactly. And I think I do hear a lot of complaining with no offer of help or answers. Hey, we want more diversity. Yes, we all do. How do we do it? Uh, I don't know. How would you do it? I don't know.
Right.
So we're both in the same boat. Uh, Rather than, hey, I work in a high school. Why don't we get some high school kids, into the theater, and I'll teach a workshop. That'd be a great start. Hey, I got an idea. Like this is a community based on ideas, and yes, handing them. So offer ideas rather than just always criticizing. I didn't want to make it such a rather than to criticize or to complain. Because I mean, we've like with the local theaters, you and I have interacted with everybody who's pretty much in charge of those things, and they all want much of the same thing that everybody else want. They want to run a good business, they want to have a healthy community, and they want to be all inclusive and have everybody be happy to the best of their ability.
Yeah. Translating complaints into offers is
Right.
beautiful. And you know what goes for your neighborhood and your politics too, people.
Right.
Be an active citizen. So last little subtopic that I want to touch on before we wrap up is the idea of building the talent pool, because and I don't want to talk about it in terms of something you mentioned earlier, which is the up and comers versus like the experienced veterans. That's a tricky balance too. I've definitely been in a position of directing a show where sometimes it's like, I want to support the up and comers and also challenge them in a way that some people who are more comfortable would be more resistant to being
That's elastic time cannon, right? That's the whole story.
Yeah, it's that, but also like some here and there, like if I put together a troupe or a one-off show or whatever, it's the last time canon is definitely that is like, that was about, here's a group of people who are not only in that up and coming few years into improv, spreading themselves thin and all being in groups of different combinations with the same people, and and then that show is also like, can I with like you just, I didn't know whether I could effectively lead a group of people who uh, weren't quite as open to those challenges and trying crazy things. You know what I mean? And maybe that's a
That's interesting to me because, like, if I had to put someone in that role of all the improvisers I know, it would have been you. You are a natural leader. Like you have that kind of charismatic thing about you that people do follow you. So to me, you doubting that is interesting. But I get it. I mean, like I said before, us as artists do have that self doubt thing, but I've never heard you say that before.
yeah. Well, and I don't know. It's part of it is a doubt of like because I was only in like my mid-20s when directing that, and I didn't feel like
So
people
young.
respect me. I know. I didn't feel like people didn't respect me or whatever. It's just like I don't know. I really it's not so much about the specific situation with Elastic
Right.
Time. It's mostly about like how do you kind of cultivate like raising the bar to the next level, but
Right.
still taking the ingrained members of the community with it. I think that's the balance, because there's like
Yeah.
there's other shows like The Draft that I thought would be a great opportunity for this is a show where you people sign up to participate, you draw random names to draft up small groups of like 3 or 4 people, and then you do a month-long tournament of them was how we did it. But I thought that specifically, conversely to
Okay. Yeah.
Elastic Time Canada is like what about the veteran people who, how can I get the mixed bag of people who maybe don't want to do 22 rehearsals for a show, but like do want to mix and mingle with their fellow performers more,
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on like how do you balance like keeping the new crowd pushed up and seeing how far they can go with their wave, but also managing the community's experienced pool of improvisers?
Oh wow, that's I think if I had an answer to that, man, things would be a lot different all around.
Yeah.
uh, Honestly, though, I think it's up to the individual. To be honest, you can't you can only lead the horse to water or all for water, you know. Because unfortunately, if you're going to play with people who aren't seasoned, you have to help them get seasoned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to do it is to play with seasoned performers. It's but if that seasoned performer doesn't want to, you know, give up their time, which I understand because by that time they've given a lot of time to the theater and their art and stuff like that. So it's hard to get excited about rehearsals. I remember when we try to do the weekly rehearsals, like the Gauntlet week rehearsals at Pointless. It was rough, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean a lot of that with the drive time and stuff like that, but just trying to it didn't feel like the excitement as it would have when we were doing that for when we were younger, I guess. So I guess it would be up to the director to come up with a curriculum that was both challenging for the seasoned professionals, but accessible to the newer people in the room.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
And maybe not always playing to the lowest denominator, you know?
right. Well, okay.
Because, man, I don't need to take another character workshop. I
Right. And that it's like yeah, in New York they did this big shuffle of the house teams at the People's Improv Theater where I was on a house team, and it's just an interesting thing that they're kind of drafting teams, it seemed, and they assign everyone, and then you get your own coach. You find your own coach. You're not assigned a coach. But it seemed like they were like, oh, this would be a good mix of people and sensible things. But then when you get onto the team and it's like man, there's a mix of different goals here, because some people are like, oh, I've been doing it for 10 years, and usually I'm the person who's always like, let's rehearse. But in this instance, I was like, I feel like for what we're trying to do, let's not rehearse. Like I'd rather like hang out than go to the and then go to the show and have that be the time that we're building chemistry with each other. And other people are like, this is my first house team experience and I want to rehearse. I want to get better. I don't feel like I'm really getting the things consistent that I want to get consistent, and everywhere in between. And so it's like, I think maybe a big part of the answer is like setting the expectations so up front, so that like if you're like finding ways to communicate what your goals are and what your expectations are as a performer, you're like, I'm somebody who would love an opportunity to rehearse a lot, to really work on form, be good at it. Or I'm somebody that would I just want to do the bread and butter montage. I want to have fun, keep it loose, and I don't have the time to rehearse. Whatever it is, then like it's easier to match people who have the same goals and want to do the same type of work. And I think that I maybe make too many assumptions about who is or isn't interested in certain types of processes.
I think we're always so afraid of asking that question or asking questions. And I think people are afraid of being honest when they answer those questions. Because I've seen that situation come up as well. Like, I think just communication all across the board should be a little more transparent.
Yeah, we should have playing cards, annual playing cards, trading cards.
I think we do. Keep still make those.
Yeah. But like, you know what I mean? Like here are my stats and my interest. Or like I guess
here's my work schedule. Here's when I have a babysitter. These are the times throughout my lifetime I'll be single, so I'm even more free.
It is. It's like OK Cupid for improvisers,
right?
Well, so I don't know if we gave a real strong answer to it. I think the idea of expectations and communicating what your interests and goals are, it can go a long way to balancing new and old talent.
Well, it's not our jobs to tell people what to do with their lives. It's just like, hey, this is what it could be. This is what it's looked like, and then here's a new way of thinking. Not always expecting. I really think you nailed it at the beginning of the conversation, talking about putting in as much as you get or give as much as you take. I think like find that balance if you can. If you are, coming to every jam, that's awesome. If you are, if you just promoted your own show and asked people to put up stuff on their social media platforms, when your friend asks you to do the same, make sure you do. It only takes a couple seconds, and it does help with the algorithms and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's just commenting on things, just making your community, your theater more visible. It's a good start.
Yeah. Be a buddy.
Plus, I mean, it gets you noticed. Like people who put in extra stuff, get recognized for the effort they put in. Mm-hmm. They don't always, get rewarded equally to the amount of work they put in, but it does help.
Yeah, but people who are doing it for the right reasons aren't doing it for those reasons of recognition, right?
Yeah.
And that's really where what it is like it does go hand in hand, but you have to keep yourself in the mindset of not needing it to turn out the way that you hope it does. You don't need it to.
Because you saying that just reminds me, like, how many times I've been asked how much I get paid to run the YouTube page. Like when I used to record shows and stuff like that, like I've never made $1.
Yeah.
But that's not the point.
Your reward will come when you enter the Guinness Book of World Records for most improv videos on a YouTube channel.
Oh, my parents will be so proud.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really great conversation.
Right.
I think we covered a lot and a lot of subtopics. Obviously, things like diversity and inclusivity are things that we'd be better off having a panel discussion about, or a more inclusive discussion about those things in dedicated episodes. But I think being able to touch on everything about community and just thinking about it in terms of like that give and take is good to just remember that, like, how much have you gained from it and what can you give back?
I mean, and times right now when the theater can't give much back because they're not doing much, or
Yeah.
they don't have a theater like a or brick and mortar building to open. Maybe it's time to get more than to take.
Yeah. Um, okay, awesome. Uh, Speaking of being a good community member, shout out to Serious Gear.
Woohoo!
Wearing brand spanking new t-shirts sent from our
There it is.
Mitch Sosha and Speedy Tees. Shout out to them for printing the t-shirts. Also, if you are looking for more improv FAQ, you can check out the YouTube channel where you'll find all the most complete and up-to-date content. There's also the Facebook page, and we are also a podcast with Gabber Media. So if you prefer to have this in your earbuds on a walk or whatever, I guess you can still
Take us for a walk. I haven't been on one for a while. Let's take us for a walk.
We are now all caught up on episode releases for podcasts. So check that out. Okay. I don't know. Anything else you want to plug? What do you got going on for vacation?
I just got back. We're good. Went to Picture Rock. It's gorgeous. So yeah.
Yeah, it looked like a ton of fun. But vacation's over. Bob's back. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you next time on Improv FAQ at length. Bye.
Bye.